Alright, so today we're talking about Victor Gideon, the villain currently being shown for Resident Evil Requiem through most of its marketing. And while there's not a lot to officially kind of go off of who he is and what he's doing, there is a couple of theories out there, and since you guys liked the Alpus video so much, and the theory that's going around for that, I thought I'd kind of do the same thing with what's currently circulating with Victor at the moment. So we'll go into, first of all, what we do know of him, which is very brief, and then we'll talk about the ideas behind, how he's going to play into the story of the game. So let's go for it. First of all, Alpus. Obviously, he's very much involved with Alpus. I'm assuming he's probably the one that made it, or at least in one way or another, he's very much involved with the creation of it. And interestingly, obviously he's ex-Umbrella, or OG Umbrella, evil Umbrella, not Blue Umbrella, original Umbrella. And it stated in the trailer that once Umbrella kind of went under, he went and bought a building and has probably been working out there since. And it's interesting because Umbrella's been gone a long time at the point of Resident Evil 9, right? So how is he getting access to all this stuff? And hopefully this kind of leads into the first of the many theories going around with Victor Gideon. Hopefully this finally gives us the in-game introduction of the connections. Now we know the connections are briefly in mostly Resident Evil 7 and then mentioned in 7's DLC and 8. We know that Mia Winters was working with them to escort Evelyn. Evelyn was a creation made by the connections, and if you don't know who they are, essentially, in a very brief summary of them, they are black market bioweapon dealers, but one of the founders of this group is Brandon Bailey. Brandon Bailey was a old, very high up member of the old Umbrella Corporation. He was actually very close to Spencer within Umbrella, so very high up. And I have no reason to assume it's true, but maybe Victor and Brandon are some way in contact and working together, working through, obviously, previous Umbrella research and whatever materials and things the connections can get hold of in the modern day storyline. So that's kind of something I think makes a lot of sense. I think it's time to kind of introduce the connections. You've got people who used to work for old Umbrella coming up in this game, so having that group finally kind of actually physically be in the game would be pretty cool, and is probably the right time to do so. Alright, so next up, obviously, this is an interesting one. So this is very kind of based off of Village's marketing, okay? So let's wind the clocks back to Village, okay? Dimitrescu, big public response from pretty much everyone who would play Resident Evil and people who didn't about, the excitement for the character, right? Now, throughout all the marketing, she was very, forward, right? She was very upfront, big deal for marketing, and then ended up being, maybe the first hour or two of the game, and she was gone. That was it. She was dead. That was it. Over. Finished. Right? Now, people are thinking maybe Victor Gideon isn't the main villain of the game. Maybe it's another Dimitrescu situation where he's only in the first part of the game. And there is legs for that. Again, a lot of what's been shown in trailers and brief gameplay footage we have is not in Raccoon City. And there's a big emphasis on going back to Raccoon City in this game. So the fact that he's not maybe even there could mean that, he's dealt with in the first part of the game before you go to the city. Again, just a theory. But speaking on that theory, there's a clip at the end of the showcase which may suggest he is in fact going to kind of be dealt with early on. And again, take this with a bit of salt because it might not necessarily be the case, but take a look at this. Okay, so there's theories going around this is actually a mutated version of Gideon, based purely on some details on its body, the clothes, the hair, the head. It could be absolutely nothing. It could just be a different monster. But people have been kind of comparing that monster there with the human, I guess, form of Victor Gideon, and maybe he is just kind of like a boss at the start of the game, and then he's gone, and then you kind of go to Raccoon City, and he's dealt with. We don't know. I do kind of see the whole, maybe he's not in the whole game argument. Like I've said, they're keeping so many things close to the chest. We haven't really seen anything from Raccoon City in terms of gameplay, other than like snippets of like the crater and then obviously the destroyed police department. We don't know much about that part of the game yet, and the director even said in the showcase that there's so much more he wants to show and talk about with the game, but they're waiting until launch now. I'd imagine there's going to be one more trailer, probably a launch trailer at some point during February, but again, I don't think that will show much more than what we've already seen, to be honest. But yeah, it's obviously a brief video talking about the villain we currently do see for Requiem. I'm under the belief that maybe people are right with him not being the actual villain and there's someone higher up. I'm hoping, really hoping, it is the connections and Brandon Bailey. I think it's time to bring those people forward, especially considering we're back in Raccoon City and the founder of that bloody group is a higher up from Umbrella. So maybe Victor Gideon's the lackey and then Brandon turns up later in the game. We don't know, but this is just all theorising and talking about stuff. But as always, leave your thoughts on the topics in this video down below. Who do you think Victor is? What's his involvement in the game? What's his plans? Is there someone else above him that we're going to be dealing with later on? Let me know. Thank you for watching, and as always guys, I'll catch you in the next one.